Hello Scrappy friends, welcome back to my video. It has been a hot minute since we talked about our go-to designs. So let's kind of recap. Several months ago, I did a video where I demonstrated 5 of my favorite go-to designs, something that I can do very quickly when I'm either like in a slump or I just want to get some pages done quickly. I don't have to look for a sketch or look for inspiration. I just dig into my mental files and pull out one of my go-to designs. So I did that video and it was more of a beginning scrapbooking video, and there were several viewers who wanted to see an intermediate level. So we've been working our way through those 5 designs at an intermediate level. Now with the intermediate level, I decided it was best to do individual videos for each one because I want to show several variations. So today we're going to jump into the 2/3, 1/3 layout style, and I have 4 variations to show you, but then within each variation I might have another way to kind of change it up as well. So it's going to be several different examples. And that's why I needed to break them up into little videos. And this is the 3rd one in the intermediate level. So if you've missed any of them, I do have a playlist for go-to designs. You can go check out the first video. And I highly recommend, if this is the first go-to design video that you're watching, go check out the first one because we laid a lot of great foundation in the first video. And today I'm going to pick up right where we left off. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the basic layouts. I'm going to go right into how we can change them up to bring in some more tools, bring in some pretty embellishments, things like that. Today's video is strictly going to be about design concepts, not finishing a complete layout. And in fact, I'm just going to be pulling in embellishments and scraps from my stash. Might not even make sense with the paper that I'm using. So yeah, please jump over and go see that video if you haven't yet, and then come back and join us over here. Let's get going. So this is the 2/3, 1/3. Okay, and just really briefly what that means is we take a 12-inch piece of paper and we cut it into a 2/3 strip and a 1/3 strip. So if you have a 12-inch piece of paper, this will be 8 inches and this will be 4 inches. I'm going to call this the strip as we go through the video today because this is the part we're going to be changing up and doing some different elements with. But I also, if I'm looking at a sketch and I saw this as a 3-inch piece and a 9-inch piece, in my mind that's still a 2/3, 1/3. Even though I know the math, it would be more like a 1/4, 3/4. But in my mind, I like to just keep it all categorized in a 2/3, 1/3. I just wanted to put that out there. So if you start seeing this kind of design concept in sketches, let your mind think 2/3, 1/3. So the idea is we could use one piece of paper, flip it over, as long as it has a very nice contrasting backside, we can use it. And then we have a very nice page. Now I'm going to scoot this in a little bit because that's another way we can change this up. We talked about that before, and I'm going to just have a little bit of white space showing. It really helps to kind of like let our eyes rest on the outside. Okay, so how are we going to change this up? The first concept I want to bring in is make simple changes to the strip. Okay, so what do I mean by that? I would maybe give the strip a nice pretty punch with an edge punch. This is super simple with an edge style punch, but the same thing could be done with a chain punch, and then you can just layer it back on top. Keep it simple for yourself. Use an edge punch. There's tons of them out there. Pick one that goes with your theme or one that you like and just punch it along the top. And then I'm going to put that over here. And then you see how nice that looks on that white space? The reason that we like the go-to designs is because we can get a lot of photos on here. And sometimes we just want to get our photos on and move on to the next layout. Here's our super simple change up, bringing in some tools. Other ways I would elevate this up is, let me bring in my photos. Here's what I mean by we can house some nice size photos on here on the strip. Now on a 4-inch strip, a 3.5 by 5-inch fits very nicely. So you can do that, but you would have to overlap. Now that we've punched it and made it a tad bit smaller, the photo might need to overlap. Or you can bring in a smaller photo, like here's a 3 by 5 and that fits pretty good, still a little tight. And here's a 3 by 4. So those do fit on the strip. And so let's go ahead and leave those there. A way I like to elevate up my design is to bring in a couple of layers or items to cover up the seam. So I would bring in something like this, and then I would put my photos back on, slightly overlapping the pink area, and maybe bring in some mattes for the other photos. I'll bring in another shade of pink here and here. Really helps to make that pop. The strip over here, let me just slide these down a little bit and show you where I would put the title. I would do something like this and maybe put the title right up here in this area. Move the photos down a little bit. We have a little bit of room. So I would put my title here and then probably an embellishment cluster right over here. And let's scoot them up just a little. It depends on what you have here. I have a very tall embellishment, so I probably do something like that. So let's talk, before we get into more of embellishing, let's talk about how we would do a second page. So let me scoot this over here. Now I have my second page in place. Let me flip this over. You can do an exact mirror image, but I would probably do something like, either if I'm going to do a mirror image, slide this over here and put the extra piece on the outside. Again, I would probably edge punch this. I think that would look very nice. Another way that we can change it up, which is a very common thing you'll see in some sketches, is carry this paper along to the other side. So maybe flip the 1/3 part over, and in that case I might slide this all the way to the inseam there, everything over ever so slightly, so it just looks like the paper is flowing through. And then in that case I would turn it over and use the reverse side on the outside edge over here. And I would bring in another thin piece of pattern paper to cover up that seam. It's a very cute layout. Let's bring in our photos and continue doing some photo placement. I would do something like that. You see how nicely the 3.5 by 5.5 fit in a 4-inch strip. And then I'll bring in some more. We have plenty of room on this layout to bring in whatever size photos that you're working with. You know, I'm always going to say, get your photos to fit on the layout. You can do it. You just need to kind of manipulate it a little bit. We can also do something like that. We can bring in 4 by 4 photos right there. I think that would look very nice. But for my example today, I'm going to stick with the 2 4 by 6 and probably scoot them down. Let me bring in a couple more mats to kind of help this layout pop. So I have my title. I have started an embellishment cluster here. I would like to add some journaling, so I'll bring in a journaling card and see if I could fit this right up here at the top. Things are getting a little large now because we have a big photo with a mat on it, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep moving it around until it fits. I'm going to put it right there so that I can embellish off to the side, but we can play around with our spacing. So you know I always like to do some embellishing right around my journaling box. So I'm going to bring in a little embellishment and put it right there. That would be my 3 embellishment areas, making that visual triangle on our layout. So I have a couple flowers here that I brought in, so what the heck, let's bring them in and do a little bit more decorating, because I have a lot of room right here, which is always fun. So I probably would bring in a couple things that kind of trail off to take in that space. Could also put a little photo there if you had it. And then I have a few more flowers. What I want to do with these are come maybe right up here. And again, this is not about my designs or my actual layout. I just wanted to show you how I would fill in the space. So I would maybe bring in another punch so that I have the same punch out in every embellishment cluster. If you wanted to over here, I think what I would do is slide this under so that I have some white space showing over here. I would edge punch right here instead of the strip. I'd probably edge punch this, get those photos to fit on there, or maybe trim them down if we needed to. Put this back there. It's a little bit more eye-pleasing with the white space off to the side. So that's my first recommendation to changing, would be to make a simple change to the strip itself by giving it an edge punch. Now, another way we can give a very simple, nice change to the strip is by bringing in a piece of pattern paper from the same collection or something that you feel matches really nicely. And what I would do with this is about a 1.5 inch strip, and I would put it right here at the end, the 4-inch strip, and put this back on top like that. Bring back in our photos. And so I would do the same thing over here, because I would want to bring in the pattern paper on the other side. I would just put it right here. A little bit of scrap used up and adds just a little bit more pop of color to our layout. So there you go. Simple changes to the 4-inch strip. That's our first easy change. Let me clean this up and we'll bring on idea number 2. For idea number 2, you'll see here that I do have my 4-inch strip, but I have a complete 12-inch piece of paper here, because the idea with this one is we want to be able to move the strip around, and so that's what I'm calling this one, moving the strip. So I have a 12-inch piece here, but if you lay a 4-inch piece down on top of it, regardless of where you're putting it, you're still covering up 1/3 of the background. So if you added all these up, the brown part would be the 2/3, and then this white lattice looking paper would be the 1/3. So I want to be able to move my strip around. Maybe I want to put it at the top, the bottom, or one of the sides. So I'm going to put it right about here for now. And then I want to modify this strip just like we did in the first example. So I would maybe bring in a piece of pattern paper and maybe put it just like that, like we did in the first one. Very easy way, again, to just make a quick modification. Let me go ahead and bring in my photos so we can kind of build this as we're going through. So I would bring in probably 2 photos right here, and this would be kind of my more focal photos, the ones I want to highlight. And then I'll do a second page, which I will show you, and we'll do more of a photo dump page where we just put our extra photos, but we still make it look nice. Okay. Other ways I could enhance my strip is by bringing in border punch out, and this one is from a border punch, and we can either put it right here covering up that seam, or we can even move it to the outside. I think I'll leave it off to the side just for our demonstration purposes today, but moving it around will really help change it up. Then I would bring in, just like we did before, a photo mat, and this one's just a large photo mat, bringing in again some of the pattern paper from the collection, and I'll put 2 photos just like that. And then let me go ahead and grab my embellishments, and we're going to give this a title, and it's going to come right up here. Let's scoot it down, and then I probably would come right down here. Let's just give it a little base for now. Before I get into any more of this, I'm going to scoot this aside and bring in the second page so we can see where we're going with our design concept. Okay, for this side, this would actually was the 2/3 piece when I cut the 1/3 off. So I had that big chunk left. Doesn't have to be. You can always bring in a scrap for your 1/3 piece. But since I had this, I wanted to try to carry that pattern paper to the other side. So I thought I'll put it here, and I happen to have a nice scrap of that same brown. So I'll just tuck that under and make my page look more cohesive. But I'm also the type that would bring in some more of the green, or make these a little bit smaller, maybe put this on top like that. So it's really whatever you're feeling, but also take a look at your photos and how you want your photos to be displayed. So this kind of page gives us a lot of room for a photo dump, and that's where we're just going to put on a lot of photos. I have some 3.5 by 5.5. Those always look good going straight down, and that is a good way to get a lot of photos on. We'll just keep putting them down like this. And then I have a 4 by 6, maybe another highlighted photo that I want to accent and put right here. Down here, we could bring in a 4 by 4 photo, but I also still need to bring in a journaling spot. So I'll do that and put that right there. Okay, now looking at this, I feel like I need to bring in something along that seam right here. So I look at my other page and I have the orange floral paper. So I will bring a piece of that in. So think of next steps is maybe bring in a photo mat. I had this scrap of the green that we used here, and sometimes if you only have a scrap, you can tuck it in and make it look like it's a photo mat. So I'm just going to tuck it under the photo. It won't go all the way around, but I like that look, and it kind of makes the eye carry that green to the other side. The other thing I really like on the left-hand side is my leafy vine punch out right here. I would bring that in right down here, kind of ties that whole thing together. That would be moving the strip around. I think that looks super beautiful. Let me go ahead and add just a few more embellishments to kind of wrap this one up. I would probably bring in some kind of cluster base up here. Something like that. Let's see what else I have here. Maybe a butterfly up there. Down here, I have a little tag. These are all just miscellaneous pieces from my stash. More orange. I'm just going to kind of add in orange since that's kind of a pop of color that we already brought in. A little arrow maybe. There we go. Over here, I love to decorate my journaling box, so I'll bring in that flower again. Let's see, maybe I would tuck it down there, and then maybe a little arrow, something like that to point back up. But again, it's not about the embellishing. I just like to have some fun. So there we go. That is idea number 2. Moving the strip around. Let me clean this up and I'll bring in idea number 3. And while I do that, I would appreciate it if you would take this opportunity to please click that like button. It helps me to spread my content throughout YouTube so that other people can find this scrapping community. So thank you for doing that, and I'll be right back. Okay, for idea number 3, again, I just have a 4-inch strip. This one is just a scrap of paper and a piece of cardstock. And for this one, I'm going to slide it all the way to the edge. Again, we're covering up 1/3 with the pattern paper, and then the 2/3 would be the cardstock. So for this one, I'm going to call it adding a block. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So I have a block of paper and I'm going to slide it right here. Now my paper is a little bit longer, just happens to be what I had, and I'm dropping it down 2 inches from the top, 2 inches up from the bottom. I had plenty of room to tuck under, but you could get away with an 8-inch block right here. Okay, so that would be my desired cut, would be 8 inches. I had a little bit extra, so I just tucked it under. Here we go. We're just adding a simple block to our already 2/3, 1/3 layout. Let me add in some photos and show you how I would put the photos. I probably would do something like this. I love the pop of green, so I want to make sure I'm still highlighting that. And I would probably do something like, let's see, turn this one around, maybe line those up a little more, drop it down like that. Kind of keep it here within the block. but you certainly don't have to, and you can certainly add more photos than this. So now how would I elevate this up? I don't really have room on here to add photo mats unless I wanted to shrink down my photos, and you certainly could do that. I would pick a color from my pattern paper over here and add in a photo mat that would match. The next thing is I would maybe bring in some punches and make a punch out. So in this case, again, I found a color over here that I liked, and so I punched it out onto some light blue, and I'm just going to tuck it in here. You can always trim it, and if you're going to make a second page, you know what I would do. I would trim off that excess and then take that to my second page. But for this page, I would just put it right up there at the top. That just brings in a lot of texture, dimension, interest to our page, and a nice pop of blue color. Then I would bring in my title. I would probably put it right up here in that open space, kind of fill that in and give that space a purpose. And then a journaling spot. Now, I don't have a second page to show you for this layout because I probably would just make a complete mirror image, and I would put the green cardstock here, take a strip of this and move it to the outside, a block, a punch out, and then arrange my photos in a similar fashion, or even sneak on another photo if I could. So I would put my journaling spot here, and I would just bring in some other element. For this one, I'm going to bring in, let's see, we'll put a circle here and maybe a circle down here. I would decorate up onto those circles. So maybe over here, let's see, I have another little circle. I love doing this. I probably would come on top. I have some blue hearts. So I have blue in every area. Technically, this has some blue up here, but maybe I would bring in a little pop of blue underneath my friend's title and give it a little bit of a base right there. I love using the slide rail punch, so I would maybe bring in a couple of these, maybe one down here and maybe one over here, kind of covering up that seam between those other two circles. I have a scallop circle. I'll probably bring that in. Maybe I'd slide it off to the side like that, come into my open area there. A little flower I would maybe put up on top. Again, we're just playing, and I just found these in my stash. In fact, let me show you. So a lot of you know this already, but I keep a little open box over here to my side on my little rolly cart. And when I'm too lazy to put everything away after a layout, I sometimes dump miscellaneous things into here. And then I pick through here to try and get them used on a layout. So that's all I did. I just picked out things I already had punched out or set aside. So that's where I got these. Some little words. I love doing that. I probably would put that down here, and my little arrow. Let's see, I probably would tuck my arrow right over here. But let me show you how we can change this one up as well, because here we used an 8-inch block, and let's see if we can maybe slide some of this out. So just to show how easy that these concepts are to change up, we're going to bring in this 10-inch block. You move all this out of the way, and we're going to put it right here in the middle. And now we'll bring back in our 1/3 strip, and this time we're going to move it around. We had it over here before, which again looks great. I probably would pull it out a little bit more, maybe leave a little margin here, or maybe not. We have room to pull it all the way out, and it gives us a bigger area to put our photos. We can maybe put some mats on our photos now. Okay, but what I wanted to show was, let's go back to one of our original ideas, and that's moving the strip around. So let's move it. Let's say we're going to put it right about here, and I'm just visually moving it, but if you need to know, it's at the 2-inch mark. Okay, maybe bring back in our punch out. We can either go here. This punch out was not quite the full size, but that's okay. That actually gives a lot of interest to your page as well. or you can slide it out here to the edge, which is really fun and kind of gives an ending point for our layout. Okay, let's bring back in our photos, because I probably would do something like this, change our photos around a little bit. And we had this one, so let's see, let's kind of put that up there. And then I would start bringing in everything else. So I used the same embellishments, I just changed it around ever so slightly by moving the strip, changing the block size. Very easy concept. Okay, so we're adding a block with our strip. And again, for a double page layout, I would either do a mirror image, or I would maybe do a photo dump page on the other side like we showed in our previous idea, because this is kind of a more fancy page, and then just give a very simple photo dump page on the left-hand side. Okay, let me clean up idea number 3, and I'll be back with our last one, idea number 4. Okay, our fourth idea is we have our strip, again, just another piece of scrap or just another piece of paper, using it on a complete 12 by 12 background. And let's go ahead and put this one all the way to the side, and we're going to bring in a new concept, but also mix and match some of the stuff we've already been talking about. So for idea number 4, I'm going to call this one adding layers. We have our 1/3 strip, we have our 2/3 piece here, and I'm going to bring in my photos and then just add some layers to that. But let's build up our strip first like we've been doing. So I really love this idea of adding something simple to the strip. This one is a little bit thinner. It's about a 1 1/4 inch strip, and I'm just putting it off to the side. And then I'm going to bring in another punch out strip. These are very easy. We have all these punches. We just want to bring them out and get them used. And it looks really good on this layout, and it's not intimidating because we're putting it in an area where it's not going to really interfere with our photos, and we still have this wide open piece of landscape right here to put our photos on. So let's go ahead and bring our photos in. I have, let's see, I have a vertical photo that I want to put right here, and a horizontal photo I want to put right here, and a 4x4 photo right here. And for this one, I would do an exact mirror image on the other side, so I'm not going to show you that. You're going to see here in a minute how easy that's going to be to replicate on the other side. I would just flip it all around. First thing I do want to do here is bring in some photo mats. So again, ignore the different shades of yellow here. I was just kind of in my stash. I didn't have enough of one shade to make all of them. So, and I did look through here to see what colors would be nice. That's how I came up with the orange and the green and now the yellow. And we're gonna keep it like this for a minute and see what we can do. Okay, so that's gonna be my photo placement with my mats. It's looking good already. And now let's bring in a journaling spot. So I have this one, just some plain lined paper, and I probably would put it right here. Maybe in this case, I'm going to scoot that up and maybe overlap a little bit and then slide this down so it kind of tucks into that L shape perfectly. And I like this line paper. It's about a 3x4. And it fits nicely in there, but I'm going to see if I can find something else. I did. I found this cute little paper in my little box I have here with some scrap journaling boxes in it, and I like that. I'm going to put that right in like that. I think that looks a lot better, and I would just write my journaling right on there. So I have my journaling box. Now I want to bring in my title. Now this is a pretty big title, so let me see. I'm going to scoot some things down here, and I'll put it right like that. And then for embellishing, you know, I'm going to come up here and hit this title. I have a little base I could probably put right there. And then I have a few little elements I'll bring in right down here at the edge of my journaling box, like I always do. You're probably wondering, okay, that's a nice layout. We use the strip, but where's the layers? I do count the matting to the photos as a layer, but you're right, I'm gonna bring in some other layers. So for that, I'm gonna bring in these two pieces here. They're both 6 by 6 inch squares. I picked one that matched the little bit of the green I put over here, and then just another piece from the collection. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to slide it right under these photos like that, and I'm going to put it at an angle so my title still fits. And then with the second one, I'm going to slide it under the first one and the photos and kind of put it at an angle as well. There we go. I got everything aligned. You can see how just adding a couple pieces of layers underneath the photos just helps to kind of give it a little bit of an elevated feel. Yes, a lot of that paper gets covered up, but it's more for color and dimension on the layout. Now what I did was I purposely kind of put those at an angle and kept the photos nice and linear. And that's what I would recommend, is to try and, you wouldn't want to have the photos all kind of going different directions, because then it might just be a little too crazy for the eye to see the photos. And we don't want to put so much on here that we're not seeing our photos. So that's concept number 4, is to bring in layers. Now I want to show you one more way that we can change up this simple idea and give it maybe a little more softer feel to it. So for that, I'm going to pull these layers back out, and I'm going to bring in some circles. Circles really help to give it a more softer look. These are a 6-inch circle. I used my large custom cutting circle, a 6-inch piece of paper, and did the red blade on the outside. So let me just tuck my circle in a little bit more, bring in the second circle, and this time I'm going to tuck it underneath. Let's get it under that first one and the photo. Now this one I probably would make sure I come out a little bit more than what I have exposed here, just to so it doesn't look like they're just lined up and linear like we had with the squares. Okay, so you see how that kind of just gives it a little softer. You can play with the positioning and making sure you don't have any openings and show a little bit more of the circle if you wanted to. But another thing I would maybe do is maybe bring in another circle element. Now I just used this one, the same paper, but you can change it up. This is just I believe it was the inside of the medium circle, and I would probably tuck it right around here somewhere. Maybe overlapping the photo, maybe not. It really would depend. Scoot our journaling mat over so we don't have a big exposed area there, and move our little cluster. The reason I did that was just to bring in, again, more of a softer look to our overall layout. Fourth idea within our 2/3, 1/3 intermediate level go-to design. So we're moving right along with our intermediate level go-to designs, and our next one up will be the band, so stay tuned for that. But until then, take care everybody, and I'll see you real soon. And if you wanted to see the first go-to design video, I'll link it right here, and I'll put the entire playlist right up here to make it easy for you to find the rest of these videos. Thank you for joining. I'll see you soon. Bye.